Jai Shriman Narayan. Jai Shriman Narayan. I pay my obeisances to my spiritual master, Srimad Jagat Guru Sudarshan Acharya Maharaj. I pay my obeisances to Lord Sri Ramanuj. I pay my obeisances to our Purva Acharyas. I pay my obeisances to our 12 Alvars. I pay my obeisances to Mother Lakshmi, and I pay my obeisances to Lord Sriman Narayan. I welcome all of you here, physically at the Sri Narayan Dham in Durban, South Africa. I welcome those that's watching this discourse locally, nationally, and internationally, and I welcome those that's going to be watching this discourse when it's posted on YouTube and the various groups from around the world subsequently. I want to make mention that before we go into our current topic of the Guru-disciple relationship, I want to make mention that from my perspective and the ashram's perspective, I have been for a few years now asking the ANC government to lay off former President Jacob Zuma. And I've given a few discourses in this regard, and I thank the Supreme Lord that they released Jacob Zuma immediately so that this country did not burn or start to burn again. So sometimes we have to make a decision, we have to swallow our pride, and we have to take certain decisions in life to balance the righteousness of society. And with this decision that they made, I don't think putting him to trial for all those cases will be relevant anymore, because if he can't stay in prison now, how can he stay in prison subsequently? All of you understand? So there were some comments that the Guru should stay in related topics of the ashram only and don't go beyond on social media. But it is the incumbent duty of a Guru to ensure that there's equality in society in all its spheres. There are those Gurus that sit in the comfort of the ashram. It is how they run their own ashrams. I've given you Vedic injunctions last week that in the Vedas there is political science, there is physical science, there is law and order. And I've shown you scripturally that a bona fide spiritual master personifies all the instructions that is contained within the Vedas. So the Guru is within his parameters if he gets into discussions of society at large. So contained within the Vedas, there are Dharma Sastras and Dharma Sutras. Both these subjects entail how a human should live righteously in society. And it is the Guru that interprets all of these laws and then passes it on to the societal structures. Remember, when the British first entered Bharat, or India as it is now known, they sent a report back to the masters that there is no beggar in this country and there are no thieves in this country. And the only reason he could give this explanation because India at that point in time was living within the parameters of the Dharma Sastras and the Dharma Sutras. The bona fide spiritual masters would instruct the rulers through Vedic injunctions how to rule the country. And that is a Vedic injunction. It is computed within the Vedas, and if religious leaders of all religions advise the government on how to run the government in a moral and ethical manner, then every government will be successful and every country will be prosperous. Currently, thieves are running the governments around the world. Look at any country, you'll find people with no morals and no ethics have become rulers. And the Vedas has warned us continuously that if righteousness is not injected in the leadership of society, society will crumble. And if you look around us today, you will notice that society is in a state of disrepair. So I want to get back to our main topic, and that is a question asked, I think by Vishvadhar: what are the key qualities or characteristics of a bona fide guru? So God, the Supreme Lord, is the creator of this universe, and He has given us a manuscript on how this universe should be run. He has given us a handbook called the Vedas. And if you want to know the characteristics of a bona fide spiritual master, who you think must list the characteristics of a bona fide spiritual master? The Supreme Lord Himself. So I'm starting with the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Ramanuj Gita Bhasya, and I'm going to list to you, as spoken by the Supreme Lord Himself, what the qualities of a bona fide guru should be. I'm just laboring in my discourse today because I'm not well, but I try my best not to cancel a satsang, so please bear with me. Chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, on page 101, verse 254. So the Bhagavad Gita itself is a personification of the guru-disciple relationship. The entire Bhagavad Gita is based and personifies the guru-disciple relationship. Lord Krishna is the guru, the first guru, the Adi Guru, the reservoir and source of all information that is contained within the Bhagavad Gita, and Arjuna is the disciple. And throughout the Bhagavad Gita, this guru-disciple relationship is personified in its various aspects. And I just want to pull out those that is relevant for the discussion today. So, chapter 2, verse 54, and Arjuna as the disciple is asking the Supreme Lord, Lord Krishna, and I quote, "What is the mode of speech of him who is of firm wisdom, who is established in the control of the mind? Question mark. What will a man of firm wisdom speak, O Krishna? How does he sit? How does he move?" (255) The Lord said, "When a man renounces all desires of the mind, O Arjuna, when he is satisfied in himself, with himself, then he is said to be of firm wisdom." 56. He whose mind is not perturbed in pain, who has no longing for pleasures, who is free from desire, fear and anger, he is called a sage of firm wisdom. 57. He who has no love on any side, who, when he finds good or evil, neither rejoices nor hates, his wisdom is firmly set. 58. When one is able to draw his senses from the objects of sense on every side, as a tortoise draws in its limbs, then his wisdom is firmly set. So, these are the attributes of a bona fide spiritual master, and those of you that are with me for a few years now, you will notice that all of these things, all of these attributes you experienced with me over the years, Amita. Okay? So if you go into my kutir in the back, and if you compare it to the ashram that you are sitting in now, it will be chalk and cheese. My kutir is not even properly painted yet. My ceiling is falling. The apartment that we live in the back, you cannot synthesize it with the ashram that you are sitting in. Yeah, because we have no desires for ourselves. We are here to only do God's work. Only do God's work. Every year I spend hundreds of thousands uplifting this ashram, but I can't afford 2,000 to paint and complete my kutir. These things you are experiencing yourself. Those of you that are with me for a few years, those of you that come in the back, we have no intention of getting stuck in the material world and its desires. And those of you that know me even longer, you will know that I relinquished a multi-million rand business to sit here as a guru today. So if you go on social media, you'll find people became gurus to become millionaires. Have you noticed? And I became a guru and I relinquished the millions. And this is a confirmation in the Bhagavad Gita itself. that these are the qualities you must look in a guru before you submit or surrender to a bona fide spiritual master. He must have no interest at all in the material world or the material domain. He must treat both that follow him and that who do not follow him equally. Then I want to go to page 156. .1. And Lord Shri Krishna is saying, I taught this imperishable yoga to Vishvadhar, semicolon, Vishvadhar taught it to Manu, semicolon, and Manu declared it to Ikshvaku. So I brought in this verse to show you that this is not a new thing that was spoken in the Bhagavad Gita. These Vedic injunctions are coming from millions and millions of years. And if we go to the period of Vishvadhar, then that's 120 million in its own. That period when Vishvadhar had appeared in the Vedic age. So that's 120 million plus. So this Bhagavad Gita is not 5,000 years when the Mahabharata took place. The information in the Bhagavad Gita goes back eventually to creation. Verse 2, verse 4.2, thus handed down in succession, comma, the royal sages knew this, full stop, but with long lapse of time, comma, O Arjuna, that yoga was lost to the world. So I want you to understand this clearly, that information as per the Vedas, prior to Kali Yuga, you know there are 4 yugas: Satyug, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. In these 3 yugas, the spiritual masters teach this Vedic injunctions. There are 545,000 verses, and the spiritual masters teach these Vedic injunctions in these 3 yugas in the Gurukul. They are taught in Sanskrit, and in these 3 yugas, the disciples only have to hear these 545,000 verses once to know it completely. And recently, have you noticed NASA and universities taking great interest in Sanskrit? Any one of you noticed? There are schools in the United Kingdom for many years now. From primary school, they are learning Sanskrit. Have you seen and have you noticed? Do you know? Or you hearing for the first time? And a scientific study that was done on the Sanskrit language shows that Sanskrit has a direct effect on the brain to absorb and retain information. And Sanskrit is a language that is used in a frequency. When you see these children, you can go and Google learning Sanskrit in Gurukuls. You'll see them using varying frequencies and body languages when they are reciting Sanskrit. And the reason they do this is that they activate the mantras through frequency that is within the atmosphere. And it exudes the potencies that are contained in the atmosphere. So this is how great Sanskrit is, and I think very soon Sanskrit will be used in all the computers. They want to use Sanskrit in all the computers mechanically. So you can see the greatness of Sanskrit spiritually, but it also have benefits in the mechanical and material world. So Lord Shri Krishna is saying in 4.2 that this information has been handed out orally from guru to disciple, and this information was lost to the world. That means the chain of guru-disciple relationship was broken, and that is why in every Dwapara Yuga there is the Mahabharata takes place. Every Dwapara Yuga, the entire Mahabharata takes place, and then the Bhagavad Gita is spoken and then compiled in writing, because in Dwapara Yuga, in Kali Yuga, the Yuga that we are living in, our memory is very, very weak. We have weak memories, don't we? Most of us have selective memories. Khatija, welcome back to South Africa. You enjoyed your holidays? Okay. Yeah, we have selective memories and weak memory. So it is necessary for us to have this information in writing, because we cannot retain all of this information in our brain. 4.3. It is the same ancient yoga which is now taught to you by me, as you are my devotee and my friend, full stop. For this is a supreme mystery. So I've been explaining to you over the years that spiritual knowledge cannot just be imparted to anyone. It is here, it's in the book, but I cannot go into town halls and give this information just to anyone. And I told you, whoever comes to this ashram, even if you come for just one day, you have merits from a previous lifetime to do so. You have merits from a previous lifetime to do so. This information can be read on the internet, can be read through the books, but the deep spiritual meanings cannot be found on the surface. And the Lord himself is saying that this information can only be given to a devotee and a friend. You heard me reading? This information through the disciplic succession can be only given to a devotee or a friend. That means you must be in a relationship with your guru to receive this information. I cannot go to the marketplace, I cannot go in city halls, I cannot invite thousands of people and then read the Bhagavad Gita. It's not going to work. But you've seen some gurus that travel the world giving this information. but it is not authorized by the Lord. The way the Lord wants this information to be disseminated is through the Guru having disciples and the disciples surrendering to the Guru, and then this information is transmitted from Guru to disciple. Page 172. (419). He whose every undertaking is free from desire and delusive identification, whose actions are burnt up in the fire of knowledge, him the wise describe as a sage. 420. Having renounced attachments to the fruits of his actions, ever contented with the eternal self, and dependent on none, one does not act at all, even though engaged in action. 421. Free from desire, his intellect and mind controlled, giving up all possessions, and doing bodily work only, he is not subject to evil. 22. Content with what chance may bring, rising above the pairs of opposites, free ill will, even-minded in success and failure, though he acts, he is not bound. 23. Of one whose attachments are gone, who is free, whose mind is established in knowledge, who works only for sacrifices, his karma is entirely dissolved. Page 182. (433). The sacrifice of knowledge is superior to material sacrifice. Full stop. O Arjuna, all actions and everything else culminate in knowledge. 434. I think this is the most important injunction in the entire Bhagavad Gita, because if you don't follow 434, then the entire Bhagavad Gita is lost in its context. Know this by prostration, questioning, and by service. Full stop. The wise, who have realized the truth, will instruct you in knowledge. So what is this verse saying? What is the Lord saying? For you to have spiritual knowledge, you must go find a bona fide spiritual master. You must surrender to the bona fide spiritual master. You must prostrate to the bona fide spiritual master. Surrender, prostrate, and ask questions. Ask questions through prostration. What does ask question through prostrations mean? Respectfully. You must ask questions respectfully, and the Guru will answer and give you knowledge respectfully. If the Lord is stating, and this verse is embedded in the Bhagavad Gita, it means you cannot get spiritual information any other way. Yes? The reason this verse is in the Bhagavad Gita, it means you cannot get spiritual information from any other source or any other way. You must surrender to a guru. You must ask questions through prostrations, and the gurus will give you the answers. This is the instruction by the Lord to all of humanity in the context of spiritual information. So at this point, I just want to explain something. There are many people who call themselves scholars by heart certain aspects of the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads and part of these Vedas. By hearting is just taking in facts and spewing out the same facts. Spiritual knowledge cannot be by-hearted. Spiritual knowledge must be revealed. It cannot be by-hearted or researched. It has to be revealed. And this is where there is a lot of conflict in Sanatana Dharma, because different people interpret the Vedas in different way, and they create different philosophies, and these philosophies contradict each other, because this is not realized knowledge. It is knowledge just taken out of context from one part of the Vedas to suit a particular narrative. All of you understand? So if I am having a debate with you, and if you quote one aspect of the Vedas in that debate, the minute you use the Vedas to quote from the Vedas, then you have to follow the entire Vedas. You have to follow the entire Vedas. You can't choose one aspect of the Vedas and give me a quotation if you are debating with me. The minute you take one Vedic injunction, it means you are bound to use all of the Vedas. All of you understand? And this verse, if you use the Vedas to explain, if you use some verses from the Vedas to debate, then you have to come to this verse, verse 34 of chapter 4, verse 34. In mathematics, if you are doing an equation, you all remember the equations we should do in school that have 10 steps, and you get the answer right at the bottom. A squared minus b squared times x to the power 3, all that is equal to. Then when you complete that equation, you're going to get an answer right at the bottom, and that mathematical formula is absolute. Similarly, the Vedas is absolute. Every verse in the Vedas must be used in conjunction with other verses. You can't take step number 5 from that mathematic equation and say this is the answer. Will it be the answer? You understand? So similarly, you can't willy-nilly take any verse in the Vedas to use that verse to satisfy you. You must use all the verses in the Vedas. Every verse must be used. You must know the entire Vedas in and out before you start debating on any aspect of the Vedas. And it is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam that when a snake tastes milk in a container, you cannot drink that milk. Why? The entire milk becomes poisonous. Similarly, if you take one or two verses of the Vedas and you want to debate with it without knowing the rest of the Vedas, that information becomes poisonous. You need to know the entire Vedas properly. You need to have realized it before you come out in any domain and start debating the Vedas. Knowing which, O Arjuna, you will not fall again into delusion in this way. By that knowledge you will see all beings without exception in yourself and then in me. 437. Just as burning fire turns fuel to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge turn all karma to ashes. I want to read this again. Verse 37, just as burning fire turns fuel to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge turn all karma to ashes. So whoever comes to this ashram, I always ask you to come back on a what day? Sunday. I see you here. I spend 2 or 3 hours with you. I bless you to the best of my ability. But I always tell you to come back on a Sunday. Because this is a Vedic injunction. I give discourses on a Sunday. And it is transcendental knowledge that I give you burns your karma to ashes. Who is stating this? The Lord Himself. When I give you transcendental knowledge, when you drink in this transcendental knowledge through your ears, then all your karmas get burnt. This is how your destiny changes. When you come to satsang, when you listen to a bona fide spiritual master, that knowledge that he gives you is within the parameters of the Vedas, and that Vedic knowledge is the miracle that takes place in this ashram. Is the miracle that takes place in this ashram. So, I just want you to understand this in a more simplified way. I said that we are not this body, we are the soul. The soul is seated in the vicinity of your heart. Soul is seated in the vicinity of the heart, and the soul is composed of consciousness. The soul is composed of consciousness, and there are two kinds of consciousness. Amita, what two type of consciousness? And the substantive consciousness, attributive consciousness and substantive consciousness. The substantive consciousness takes you within the soul itself, and the attributive consciousness is the consciousness that is pervading this entire body. The attributive consciousness is the consciousness that is pervading this entire body, and it is constricted by the shape of your body. That consciousness is trapped within the shape of your body. The years and years and years of karma is computed on your attributive consciousness, is computed and stored in your attributive consciousness. That means that consciousness which is pervading, which is from the soul that is pervading your body. All the karma is stored in that consciousness, and that consciousness is within your body. And when the Guru gives you transcendental information or transcendental knowledge, it enters your eardrums. It does not dissipate after the sound is identified by your eardrum. It then enters your consciousness. It then enters your consciousness and it starts sweeping. It starts depleting the accumulated karma of all your lifetimes. Your stores of accumulated karmas of all your lifetimes. And this is where your destiny starts to change. This is where your destiny starts to change. As you hear the Guru, transcendental knowledge have a potency of the Supreme Lord Himself. Transcendental knowledge has the potency of the Supreme Lord Himself, because transcendental knowledge is the essence of the Supreme Lord. Transcendental knowledge is the potency of the Supreme Lord. Are you understanding? And it's a Vedic injunction here in verse 37. 38. For there is no purifier here equal to knowledge. Semicolon. He that is perfected in karma yoga finds this knowledge of his own accord in himself in due time. 39. He who has faith, who is intent on it, and who has mastered his senses, attains knowledge. Having attained knowledge, he goes to supreme peace. Page 203. (518). The sages look with an equal eye on one endowed with learning and humility, a brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater. So, (521). He whose mind is detached from external contact, and finds happiness in the self, he has his mind engaged in contemplation of Brahman, and he enjoys undecaying bliss. 525. The sages who are free from the pairs of opposites, whose minds are well subdued, and who are devoted to the welfare of all beings, become cleansed of all impurities and attain the bliss of Brahman. 406. Chapter 12, verse 13. He who never hates any being, who is friendly and compassionate, who is free from the feelings of I and mine, who looks upon all pain and pleasure the same as, and who is enduring. 14. He who is content, who ever meditates and is self-restrained, and who is firm in his convictions, who has his mind and reason dedicated to me, he is dear to me. Chapter 12:15. He from whom the world has no cause to be frightened, who is not frightened by the world, who is free from joy and impatience, fear and repulsion, he is dear to me. 16. He who is free from desires, who is pure, expert, indifferent and free from agony, who has renounced every undertaking, he is dear to me. 17. He who rejoices not, no hates, no grieves, no desires, who renounces good and evil, who is full of devotion to me, dear to me is such a devotee. 18. He who is the same to foe and friend, honor and dishonor, who is alike to both cold and heat, pleasure and pain, and who is free from all attachments. 19. He who regards both blame and praise, who is silent and content with any lot, who has no home, who is of firm mind, and who is devoted to me, dear to me is such a man. 20. But those devotees who follow this nectar of virtuous duty as taught above, who are full of faith, who regard me as the Supreme, they are exceedingly dear to me. Okay, I'm going to stop here. So Lord Shri Krishna has, in his 700 verses, and I just pulled off a few verses that I read to you today, a whole lot of emphasis is placed on the qualities of one who is a bona fide spiritual master. So I want to give you this challenge, all of you that are seated here today, every one of you, to show which part or which attribute I do not possess. All of you seated here today. Katija, when are you going to be involved in the transcribing? Not today, okay. But when you read the transcribed discourse, show me in which part of all these things that are read that you find any of these verses amiss. Alright? You too, Sita. I want to see where I'm not fitting in. Tana? All these verses that I read, I want you to see where the Guru does not fit in. Okay? Because you can't be a Guru and only fit in half of these attributes. The Supreme Lord is absolute. The information, the knowledge is absolute, and the Guru must also be the absolute transmitter. If the Guru is not absolute, he cannot transmit absolute knowledge. Do you understand? So here's a challenge for all of you that are currently here. This challenge is not for those who have left the ashram, because definitely they're going to say this guru is nothing of all the attributes that have been stated. It is human for them to say that. Okay, are there any questions? So we are in the Women's Month. This month is dedicated to all the women around the world. And this is so because we are living in the Western concept. As per the Vedas, men and women are equal. As per the Vedas, men and women are equal. Alright? So it should be Women's Day every day. Not in 1 month, but because we live in this Western society, we're living in this Western world, let's give this month our very best. If any woman is abused, at this ashram we have infrastructure. If anybody is abused, if any woman or child is abused, or even if any man is abused, you can see me quietly and I'll make sure the abuse. I will set you up within our infrastructure. Avir, you can come and see the Guru quietly. Alright? All of you, whoever needs, this satsang is unique in that I only don't touch your head and I bless you. We give you everything that you need for societal reformation. We have infrastructure in all the dimensions, in all the spheres. Alright? You need any help, we can help you in so many dynamic ways. And I think we are doing God's work to the best of our ability. So I want to thank all of you for attending satsang today. I hope you use some parts of my knowledge in your daily life. And it is only this knowledge. There is no outside magic. There is no outside magic that can transform you. It is only this Vedic knowledge which has potency in itself that can transform and change your destiny in life. Nothing else. No lime, no monkey balls, no coconuts, no camphor, no clove. Nothing will change your life. Only transcendental knowledge. Only transcendental knowledge. Alright? That clove that when they light, that falls on your lap, is because they place it in a certain way, so when the head explodes, it falls on your lap. Alright? Rita, why are you laughing? Don't believe in cloves. Believe in the Supreme Lord. Jai Shriman Narayan.